In this video, Dr. Jordan Peterson explains how you want to be during a catastrophe in life.
And I've seen this in many situations. So a while back I was with a family where one of their family members was dying. And not a particularly pleasant death. It was associated with a degenerative brain disease, you know. And they're not as nasty as they get, but they're certainly up in the plenty nasty category. And the family comported themselves incredibly well. You know, they had a lot of experience with death. One of them was a palliative care nurse, and most of them had some medical experience. So they weren't naive about such things, but the family came together and took care of the person who was deteriorating and did what they had to help them when it was necessary. So the person's prime caretaker, her husband, was very, very good at admitting when things had fallen down yet another level and doing something about it right then and there, instead of pretending that it wasn't happening, which is a great way to catastrophe. And like, you know, it was not pleasant, but it wasn't hell. They managed it, you know, and it pulled the family together a little bit better, and everybody who was going through the experience had the support of everybody else, and there wasn't a lot of garbage underneath the family carpet that often is the sort of thing that comes up when families are extremely stressed. And one of the things I think they all gained was that their family tightened up approximately as much, I would say, as the support they lost from the family member who departed. Now, so that makes you wonder a situation like that. It's like, well, obviously the world has this tremendously negative multi-layer structure, but that leaves open the question, which is, well, if you reacted to it properly, to what degree could you ameliorate it? It's pretty damn obvious that you can make it worse. Like, that's easy, you know, if a catastrophe befalls you and all you can do is run around in circles and panic, and you're just as, maybe a catastrophe occurs and it's affecting 5 people, and you fall apart in a cowardly and pathological manner, then they have 2 people to deal with at a time of crisis instead of 1. And I can't see that being the least bit useful. And so one of the things that means, and you know, it's also something I really don't understand why people aren't taught this, is that one of the things you have to do is to learn to be competent in the face of tragedy. And you also have to understand that that's not brutality. You know, because one of the things you might wonder is, if someone close to you dies, how morally obligated are you to fall apart? And you could easily say, well, if you really love the person, the devastation should be total. And then if you say, well, it shouldn't be total because that just adds to the catastrophe, then what that implies is that there's a sort of toughness that you have to have, even in intimate relationships, that allows you to remain standing in the midst of a hurricane. And there's something about that that's kind of harsh, you know. So if you're the person who has to make funeral arrangements when one of your parents passes away, one of the things people might wonder is, well, how can you be calm enough to do that at a time like that? But the answer to that is, well, it's exactly at a time like that when you better have your act together. And that means you can't be too afraid of death, and that you can't be too afraid of being left on your own, and that you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, and that in that sort of time there's enough of you so that you can be of service and support to the people around you who maybe have fewer resources than you, maybe you're younger or more helpless, and that you can actually help. And that's a much better, not only is that a much better outcome, but it's the right aim. That's the way that you should be conceiving your development in the future. You know, you should be the sort of person who can be relied on when things fall apart. And I also think that that's analogous to what we were talking about before with regards to your ability to negotiate from within the confines of pathological structures. You should not lay yourself so open to loss that if you lose, you're dead. It means you've configured your life improperly. So if you're so dependent on one person that you cannot tolerate their loss, then what that means is you have not distributed your support properly along all of the multiple sources of support that you could conceivably have. You can't stand on one leg. Like no legs, you're done. You're in chaos. One leg, that makes you too vulnerable. It's not wise. And so you have to fortify yourself so that not only can you withstand the pressure of tyranny from the pathological systems that you'll end up involved in, but that you can also tolerate the catastrophes of Mother Nature without falling apart and disintegrating.
Thanks for watching.